Good morning, everyone. Thank you guys for being here today for our final fall series training programs in partnership with Mastercard. Our final session, I think, is the most important one. So I hope you guys tune in, have note, paper, and pencil ready because you're going to want to take a whole lot of notes today. So again, we've been in this partnership with Mastercard for the last year and a half or so. And this program is one under Mastercard's Digital Doors series, which is a training series directly for small businesses. A lot of it is to really help you guys to make sure that you're able to, manage your businesses properly, but also to get you connected to the digital economy. And so today's session, we're going to be talking about succession planning. And I know that in the 17 years or so that I've been working with small businesses, providing training and advising, helping you guys to start businesses, do business plans, financing your businesses. The one thing I think that most business owners are not giving enough consideration to is succession planning, right? We get so caught up in oh, wow, I really want to start my own business. We get caught in the doing the thing. And then when we start getting revenue, how do I grow the thing? And, how do I bring on new employees in the thing? And just too often, once we're done, we retire and we go off and we just leave the business there and nothing happens, right? And so what's happening with that is you're leaving a lot of money on the table, right? So all of the activity that you've put into that business, the enormous amount of work, the planning, the worrying, the finding the capital, developing the models, all of that stuff, it's worth something to you, right? So just to walk away and leave your business and not have a plan for succession is not the right thing to do, right? So the way to just sort of pay yourself off for all of that sweat equity that you've put into your business is to have a really good succession plan. So today we've got three very experienced professionals with us, and you guys to figure out how to do a succession plan and how to, what that strategy should look like for you. So with us today again is Miss Maureen Pritchard. Maureen has been here before talking about emergency planning. And Maureen is the principal and founder of Wheatley Pritchard and Associates, a boutique law firm that specializes in trust and estates and individual and business succession planning. With over 15 years in the legal field, Maureen is a staunch advocate for apprising her clients with the pertinent information they need, enabling them to make informed decisions about their most valuable assets. She's litigated commercial and real estate cases in New York in both state and federal courts. She now serves small businesses as an outsourced business counsel, assisting with entity formations, assets and stock purchases and sale, and corporate restructuring. As an estate planning attorney, she helps families to plan their estates and assist them through the process, protecting personal and business assets and the transfer of their assets upon death. So Maureen is a graduate of Bernard M. Baruch College and New York Law School. So welcome back, Maureen.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Lynette. I'm happy to be here again.
Awesome. And secondly, we have a newcomer. Okay, I gotta make sure I get this name right. We have Pat, or Catapan. I hope I got that right, or close. I'll let him tell you. I'll let him do the correct pronunciation. But Pat is the interim CFO and currently serves as principal with Pro CFO Partners, providing management advisory, strategic business transaction, and financial growth services to help owners of privately held companies reach their business and personal goals. Pat also currently serves as CFO of Hollywood Insider, Phoenix Global Technology, and the Capicua Group. He has over 30 years of diversified business experience, ranging from startups to Fortune 100 companies, has been a catalyst for generating over $500 million in revenue and $200 million in cost savings for his employers. Pat also invented a new patented milk product branded Cool Cow. The product launched in over 3,000 outlets, selling in major supermarket chains. Additionally, he created the modern-day model for internet browsers with automatic sign-on, Boolean search features, and email in 1985. Pat is a CPA, a certified business transition expert, which is why we have him here today. He has an MBA from New York University Stern School of Business. He served as president, CEO, CFO of several manufacturing distribution companies. So welcome, Pat.
Okay, thank you. So it's Arca Depani, but that's okay. Don't worry about the pronunciation. No, it's all right. It took me 11 years to learn how to pronounce it, so that was good.
Okay, I tried.
And I do have obviously I have some experience in exit strategies in particular for small businesses, and I've done several of them, and it's quite a chore. And I think most small businesses don't quite understand that there's a lot of work that has to be done before you go ahead and try to sell. And I think we're all going to talk about that a little bit later. And I'll leave it at that for now. And I'm here after we can deal with questions.
Well, that's exactly why we have you here.
Yeah.
And then finally with us for the second time as well is Martin Ridgers. Martin is a professional insurance executive who has led and managed underwriting teams, earning the respect of the top brokers, carriers, reinsurers, and customers worldwide. He is a seasoned professional executive with over 30 years of experience in the insurance industry, who has consistently met or exceeded annual net profit, return on investments, and revenue targets. He hailed from a family of insurance executives, including his uncle, who was the chairman of Lloyd's. Wow, that's big. So his skills include marketing, production, underwriting, reinsurance, and risk management. Martin has served as the president of the New York chapter of the Chartered Property Casualty Underwriters, or CPCU. He was an MGA and wholesale broker owner, leading underwriters to build over $100 million of specialty business premiums. He's created policy forms and rates that are still used globally for casualty, auto, property, professional liability, workers' comp, accident, marine, and more. Martin is a creator and board member of the North American Contingency Association and has created educational material for the insurance industry, partnering with CPCU and St. John's University. And Martin was educated in the United Kingdom at Desborough Acton College. So welcome back, Martin, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Looking forward to being part of this again, and hopefully we'll be invited back another time.
Awesome, awesome. So what we're going to do today, first off, I'm going to ask everybody to make sure that you have your Zoom muted so we don't have any background noise or soundtracks to the information today. And we're going to allow each of our presenters to give an opening presentation. And then we'll get into a facilitated discussion where I'll ask them some questions, some things that I know business owners want to know. And then we'll leave like the last from the audience. And then we'll take you guys' questions. So let's get started with Maureen Pritchard.
Hi again, Lynette. All right, so today we're talking about business succession planning. And, I find that this is a very, very important topic because, as you say, so many people, they start their business, they're running their business, but they don't think about, what could happen in the event of accident, illness, disability. So one of the things that we do I do as an attorney when I talk to business owners is the one thing I'm asking, do you have an exit strategy? Do you have a plan for if something happens, how is your business going to transition, right? And so, I often think of an exit, most people think of exit plan as a way to end your business, but I like to think about it really as how do you move the business to a long-term goal of transitioning through a new phase where you are no longer at the helm of the ship, right? So when accident, illness, disability, planned or unplanned retirement, and untimely death, those are events that occur. So under these circumstances, your clients, your customers your clients and your customers' interests, as well as your interests, must be protected. And in order to protect those interests, you must have a fully planned exit strategy well in advance of the event occurring.
Awesome. Okay, and let's go to Pat now. Pat, you're on mute.
I said everything I had to say there. That's it. I'm done. Anyway, I was saying I will, in continuing on what Maureen just said, I think the part of the presentation that I'm going to be talking about is specifically an exit strategy for small, usually privately held businesses. And I'm going to try to cover as much as I can during the period that we have today. But I think for any small business owner, I'm going to just add a little bit more to what Maureen said about what they're thinking about before they give it up and they move on to something else or retire. And they just don't think about it, a lot of them, and they don't realize that it takes more than 3 months, to get ready for selling your business. And if you wait until the last minute, you're just going to ruin, your chances for getting a good settlement or making money or anything else that's associated with it. You're going to spend all your time, doing paperwork and not really being able to sell your business for what it's worth. So I'll talk about it more in the presentation, but it's a very key issue that she brought up there. And I think every business owner should be thinking about at least 3 or 4 years before they're going to sell their, if they're really serious about selling their business, they need to get ready for that, early on. Okay.
Got you. Right. And Martin.
Hello, everyone. All right, so my role is looking at things from an insurance perspective. And there's lots of ways that you as a business owner can utilize insurance to protect your position. And I want to go further than Maureen and saying, really, in many ways, as a business owner or in a partnership, etc., the exit strategy shouldn't be something you think about just 3 or 4 years before you want to sell. You need to think about it from the beginning. It's a part of it. As you create a corporation, you're creating a separate entity. Even if it is all you, it's still a separate entity and has the potential to go on beyond you, or to go, or to be developed into something else or something more. Some businesses may turn themselves into a franchise later, and things. So what my role is then to sort of see where insurance can be utilized to safeguard things, and whether it's a certain asset or a way to do an early sale of your business if you're in a partnership, etc. So we'll get some more into that as we talk about some specifics. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll say this, that I've worked with a number of businesses here, and when people just decide, I'm going to retire, they walk away, right? And I'm always so upset about that, there's a lot you could do. You should be selling, your business for all of this, the equity, the reputation you've built for it, and not just walk away and leave it. So Maureen, let's talk to you. So you could just maybe basically tell us, so what is an exit plan? I think Martin just told us you really should be thinking about your exit when you start, right? I guess kind of like life insurance. You're born, you live, and you die, and you want to have insurance for when you die.
Right.
Yeah, so talk about that, and then tell us who are the professionals that a small business can engage to help them with developing a good exit strategy.
Right. So I would say a fully formed exit plan, which takes years, sometimes years to put in place, takes into account all your business stakeholders, all the people that you do business with, all the people that your business affects, takes into consideration the finances and the operation of the business, and you detail all action that is necessary to transfer, sell, or close that business. So that's essentially what an exit plan is. But your exit plan should also include instructions about what to do, how to dispose of office furniture and equipment, what to do about bank accounts, payment of business expenses and liabilities. You may have account receivables. How do you collect those? Access to important information. And I always say when someone is planning an exit from the business, they should include family and important staff members in those instructions. In the event of death or disability, these instructions are the things that are going to ease the transition of your business or the administration of your estate by describing what you have. How many business owners know exactly what they own, where the assets are located? You have retirement accounts, you have bank accounts, you have stocks, bonds. Where are those assets located? And especially, how do you access those assets and what do you do with them, right? So when you include in all of that, also think about your personal stuff, personal and family information, personal documents, business records. Do you have an estate plan yourself? Do you have a last will and testament? Do you have a trust? So think about all of those things that go into an exit plan. If you don't have one, I always say, don't put it off. Start today, keep it updated and keep it current.
Okay. And Pat, what does the market look like for the sale of businesses? I mean, are people looking now for businesses to buy?
There's actually two different things going on. I'd call it a buyer's market right now, primarily because of the baby boomers that exist. And there are about 70-something million baby boomers, and they're still reaching retirement age. They started at about 2011, but it'll run until about 2029 when the baby boomers have reached their retirement age. So with them come about 4 million of them a year retiring, and there's about 4 million businesses that are potentially for sale within the baby boomer generation. And altogether, there's probably about 27 million businesses, small businesses, and every year in the last 20 years, about 10,000 businesses have been sold. And it's averaging about that much, but it's increasing during this period. In 2019, over 15,000 small businesses were sold. So there's a market there for that. There's certainly a market. A lot of people, especially the pandemic, kind of screwed things up a little bit. So a lot of businesses were for sale. A lot of businesses are being started. You know, it's a very interesting time, but for the most part, it is, as I said, a buyer's market. And because there's a large number of businesses for sale. And it's also because you have a market, the Wall Street market, stock market that is not, it's going up and down, and it's not steady, and it's been going down a lot, and people are afraid of depression. So they're investing in the stock market is not necessarily the best place to put your funds. But this is an alternative. If they buy a business or they invest in a business, that's an alternative to what they're doing now. So in that sense, you also have a time when people would purchase, businesses. So yeah, in one side, it's a buyer's market, and the other side, there's a good opportunity to sell it because of what's going on in the stock market.
And how would you go about finding the right type of buyer for your business? Like, who would be looking for the type of business that you have? How do you find that person or company?
Okay, well, there's, can I just put up my slides here for a second? I just have a few. Give me a second here. I'm just gonna share the screen. Okay, so you notice this is my first page. I'm not doing this whole presentation. I'm just going to use a couple of these slides, but we look at an exit strategy like a maze, and that's what you're seeing here in the picture. And there was some very nice words from a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People that said, begin with the end in mind. That goes right to to what Martin said earlier. And it's exactly right. You always should be planning for the time when the time comes, because it could come before you know it. People become interested in your business and they want to buy it, and you weren't even thinking about that, but there it was. So the more prepared you are, the better off you're going to be as far as, raising money. As far as, the places that you might look for, potential buyers, there are various different places that you could do that. I just have this little chart here that shows there are outsiders, the insiders, and the public market. And the public market is probably the least of the ones that would be what would happen with the smaller entities, as far as, leaving, but you could, that it is an option. Then on the outsider side, you have strategic buyers, and those people are people that have a vested interest in what you're doing. And they could expand geographically, they could acquire technology, they could get something that's going to give them a competitive edge. That if you have a strategic buyer interested in your business, that is probably the highest value you're going to get in your business. Financial buyers are interested in money. So if you can paint the picture where you're going to sell it to them for 3 times the earnings, and they think they can flip it for 5 or 6 times in a couple of years, a financial buyer will be totally interested in what you're selling. Private equity groups, it's kind of the same picture with the financial buyer. They are basically financial buyers. Also, you could sell your business to insiders or pass it on to insiders. The most common one is probably your family, your children. Also, you can sell it to a management team that wants to continue the business, and they would go out and get promissory notes, probably from a bank, and to finance it. You can do an employee stock option plan, which many people aren't that familiar with, but there's different ways of doing that. You can simply set up a plan where your employees are gaining shares in the company over time as incentive. At the same time, you could be planning to transfer the entire business to your employees, and there are benefits associated, with that. And those benefits are, if you sell the stock of the company to them, there's no tax on the proceeds. It's a big benefit. The downside is that usually with the stock option plan, you're going to get less than you might in the open market. Again, everything depends on the type of business you have, and it depends on what the demand is for the kind of business that you have. So, but this is a good way to keep the business running, maintain your employees, make sure that they're taken care of as they're going forward. And you have other options. You can sell the stock but keep control. You can buy out minority or majority stockholders, with pre-tax dollars. So there's a lot of benefits. Probably the only big short side to this is that ESOPs require a lot of paperwork as it goes on. Every year, paperwork has to be filed, but it's really not that big of an issue, but it is something to consider when you're doing that.
So for businesses, much smaller businesses, right? They're not publicly traded,
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Most of our business owners are going to be smaller companies. Some are mom and pops, some are growing, businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what do they do if they're thinking about an employee, selling the business to their employees? Because there's been, co-ops and.
Sure. Well, you can sell to an employee. I think more often than not, they may not have the money to buy it from you, but the assets of the company may be a good place to fill in with that, because you can borrow money against assets. So if you can work it out with a financial institution or some private investors, you can buy out the company, maintain the management and the staff, and continue to move the company forward. And that happens a lot. I actually went through one of those in Europe, where the company was sold out to the CEO and CFO, and they've done very well with it, since then. So that happens. It's not infrequent. It happens a lot, and it is certainly an option, and it's certainly something that an employee, an owner might want that to happen to maintain their legacy, or to just help the people that had jobs all those years. And yes, this is all geared towards small privately held businesses.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, there's a lot of like B Corps now, social enterprises who, really take stock in their employees. And so that's been a lot of discussion. I want to make sure that businesses see that as an option. And so what goes into evaluating your company, right?
Okay, that's a very good question.
Okay,
Okay,
they're worth a lot more than they might be, or maybe they're undervaluing the company. So how do you go about, getting to the right number?
Okay, there are a number of different valuation methods. Here are most of the popular ones. The first one is called the EBITDA method, and that is probably the most predominant way that people value business. And what that means is the E here is the most important letter in this. What do you call this? An anagram? What do you call it? Whatever you call it. It's the letters and they stand for something. It's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. It's a financial term. It's very often what's used to determine the value of a business. And how they do it is they take the EBITDA, the earnings, and they put a multiplier on it. So it depends on the type of business. Some businesses would generally get a higher multiple than other businesses, like a hardware store. They generally sell their inventory, and that's what they get. Maybe a little bit more, but most businesses will have a multiplier on their business, and that's determined. Let me see if I have that here. Yeah, so what happens is during the year that you're going to be valuing your business, every dollar that you increase your earnings would generally improve your sales price by $4 to $6. That means it would be multiplied by 4 up to maybe 6, sometimes more if it's a strategic buyer. But here's what happens when people are looking at the value of their business. Very often, here's a privately held business that had pre-tax income of $2 million, but they take about $500,000 every year for their family, for their personal expenses, and they try their best to lower the number as much as they possibly can so they could save taxes. In this case, if you drop your income by $500,000, you're saving maybe $240,000. It sounds good. And they do this year after year. The problem with this is if your business did $2 million and not $500,000, and you had a multiple of 6, you would get $12 million for that company. But because you lowered it by 500,000, you're losing at a multiple of 6, you're losing $3 million. So you would potentially only end up with $9 million. And this is a real problem. And people have to, this is another reason why they have to plan well in advance. Because if you've been doing this year after year and you're saving money and maybe you have $1 million salary, you're showing less profit on the books, or you're paying off your children, they're not even working there, whatever. And so you're bringing that number way down so you don't have to pay the tax, but this is how it's hurting your business. It's not going to have the value when you try to sell it. So if you plan it early enough and you have a couple of years at least of better profits, then you'll be able to sell it at a higher value. And valuation is very tricky, and people, obviously the financial people want to get your numbers down as low as possible. As a business owner, you want to raise it. And one of the, there's a lot of things you can do to help, and that is you have an account, a CPA, look at your books, and find the things in there that are not recurring expenses. Things that are, maybe you had a line that you wasn't selling, so you got rid of it. So any losses associated with that line, you can now remove from or add back to your EBITDA to say, look, this, I don't have that line anymore. I don't have to worry about that anymore. Or if you're adding a new line that has the potential, you could show that you can definitely get higher earnings. And again, every time you do that, every dollar in this case would be worth $6. So there's a lot of things you have to do in advance to really get the money that you're looking for. And as I said, different types of buyers will put different values on what you're selling. And a strategic buyer is best. Financial buyers are good. And very often a business owner will have a value in their head that's much higher than they'd be able to get through any valuation technique. And again, mostly it's because they've been trying to save money, each year from the IRS.
Yeah, got it. Okay, so there is a question in the chat for you.
Okay.
Does the net income have to be consistent annually to determine the value of the business?
Well, no, it doesn't. I mean, it depends on the circumstances of a business. Obviously, if you can show steady income or steady increases in income, that would certainly affect, the valuation of a company. But there could be circumstances that would explain, why a company's income might go up or down. And which is why I said no, because special like a pandemic, for example, that would potentially will affect some businesses very much. And so you cannot count if there's no steady income during that period because of that specific event that took place that's out of everyone's, control. There's things like that. I mean, it could be other things, that happened or occurred that would make something go up and down. But in general, it's good to see a steady and growing income, to prove your evaluation.
Now, how much does the reputation of the business factor into anything? Because there are businesses that are so well known, and to buy a business, it's like you're buying that reputation. So how much does that play in the valuation?
A lot. Sometimes the it's called intellectual property or trademarks. Sometimes they're worth more than the actual business. So they are clearly an asset of the business, and that definitely comes into play. There's no exact formula for what a company is worth or not worth, but there are lots of things like that. There's the assets that you have. There's the income that you're generating. There are the intangibles that are in there, and those are reputation is an intangible. As is a logo or a trademark and patents and things like that. These are very strong items that can help boost the value of a company.
Okay.
Great. And can I just add, Lynette, that, some of the things that we put together when someone is selling a business is you try to put a valuation on the goodwill of the business, so that's what the business reputation is like in the community. So goodwill has an effect on the sale of the business, and it's an intangible asset, but it can be valued and increase the amount of money that the business would be sold for.
Okay, yeah, that's a great point. So sometimes it's not just we retire and we decide we're going to sell the business because we're done. Sometimes it could be because physically the business owner or owners are not able to continue to operate the business, right? So is there, Martin, I'm going to ask this question to you. Are there insurance products that can shore up that kind of investment for a business owner who can no longer operate his or her business?
I think I can start with one of the best ones is my own personal example. I went into a partnership with two people, and we agreed within how we wrote up the partnership between each other was that the value of the business in the first 5 years would be valued at $1 million. And we got $1 million worth of life insurance and long-term disability insurance that the business purchased on each other, so that if something happened to any one of us within that, especially the first 5 years, that the business would be sold, that person's portion in the business, that life insurance amount would be the sale amount, even if their portion of the business was only $100,000 at that time. But they would get that. It would be, the sale would be done. Their families would have no rights to come in and try and take over any portion of the business or get involved in the business. So that was a way that we dealt with something upfront, to try and make sure that there was a full understanding how the sale of the business would occur within the first 5 years. Now, the only exception to that was we had the business evaluated. Now, most of the time, we wrote it in the contracts, it would be every 3 years. One of my partners, he felt it was best to do it every year. So the CPA would do an evaluation of the business every year. So we would then know, if something happened, what our proportion of the business was potentially worth on a pure net basis. So again, a lot of that was making sure we set things up front and to make sure that there was that understanding. And our families understood, the first 5 years, the odds are all you're going to get is whatever that life insurance policy paid. Now, we kept the life insurance in place because it was also another way to help fund somebody leaving as well. So even if their portion of the company ended up being $2 or $3 million, we had $1 million in the company's pockets out of the life insurance that could help fund that rather than go borrow money for it or something of that nature. Because the good news about life insurance is you don't have to pay it back. And as long as you've got an insurable interest at the time you take the life insurance out, it's perfectly legal. So for example, if I bought a life insurance policy on my partner, then they sold themselves out back to me, but then they died 10 years later, and I still have that life insurance policy on them, I still get paid $1 million because at the time I purchased that life insurance policy, I had an insurable interest in them. So the insurance is a lot of things you can do. I mean, and the other things to consider from an insurance perspective is, who are the owners, decision makers, visionaries, unique talent, and earners, right? And we talked, it's not just when you want to sell, it's like if you have a person that is a particular earner, but they're not an owner, but they represent a good proportion of your revenue coming in, now all of a sudden you have an insurable interest in making sure that they're in a good place. And that can mean either buying life insurance on them, but also sometimes companies will ignore benefits as well at times when you start out. It's like, okay, they get their insurance through the state or somewhere else. But that's another way of making sure your key employees or employees that you rely on remain healthy and have a vested interest in the business, even not as owners. So it can be good to put together things like, health insurance for them, dental, vision, those things. They go a lot further than just giving them those benefits. They also help you to create a connection with your employees that help them want to stay in that, because it's not always about how much you pay them. It can be also how you provide them a safety net. America doesn't have a national healthcare system, like Canada and UK, etc. So those are ways to do things as well. So key person life insurance can be very good to get. Disability insurance as well, long-term and short-term disability. Now, the way I've worked short-term disability before was we actually, because we were California-based too, but we allowed employees to bank holiday days they didn't use. And we would then create a fund if we needed to use any of those, if an employee or one of the partners was out on a short-term basis, right? And short-term is usually between 30 to 3 months to 6 months. Sometimes you may be able to do it annually. So there's ways that you can do things not just with buying insurance. You can make it an internal function as well. How you fund the ability to assist either key people or even your employees as a whole. So all of our employees had short-term disability that's funded by the company at the time. Initially, we bought some insurance, but then we funded that one with the company. And then we made sure that there was long-term disability coverage in place, especially on key people.
Okay. Yeah, I know you've talked about that when you were here the last time, but does it make sense to have, if you've got 20 employees, does it make sense to have a life insurance policy on just your regular employees outside of your key people?
I will tell you that most people, when you ask them if you got any life insurance, I'd say 80% of the time, they're going to say the first answer is, yes, I have it at work.
Mhm.
A lot of individuals rely on what they get through their companies. Now, I would sit down with them and say, please get something for yourself too. It's nice to have that as an extra. But a lot of people look at that as that's their safety net.
Right. But, I've heard of companies, purchasing life insurance on their employees where the company is the beneficiary. Right. And
Yes, that's key person. That's key person. So yes, the difference would be if you're providing a benefit to your employees, it's their life insurance and they name the beneficiaries. If you're buying key person life insurance, then you're buying it as the corporation on an individual and you're the beneficiary as the company.
Okay.
So if you and I are in a partnership with each other, I would want to buy a life insurance policy on you, you would want to buy on me, and we would, the company, our partnership would buy it, and then the company would be the beneficiary. And there's a number of reasons to have it. One is to deal with a buyout of a partner. Two is to deal with reduction in income on a key salesperson or a decision maker. And three is to have extra money to go find somebody else with those credentials.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, that's what I've heard. And I've heard that now there are some companies that, however many employees you have, not just on your key employees, but on all of your employees, there's an insurance policy where if that employee dies, the company, is a beneficiary and benefits from that, which could be a little scary, but I'm just wondering, is that becoming a normal practice? And is that a way for a business to, make sure when employees, are no longer available to work, that there is something, an amount there that will help them to either recoup what they're losing from that employee or help to, recruit somebody else who could take over that position?
absolutely, it's perfectly legal. As long as you can show an insurable interest at the time of purchase, that you have those funds. I mean, I can tell you, we would work very, very hard to make sure employees were happy where they were, etc. Because when you start calculating the cost of replacing somebody, all of a sudden, you can have an approach where you think, oh, fine, I can replace them at any time. But then all of a sudden you go through a process of having to find somebody else. That will take you a month, 2 months or so. Now you go through a process of training them. And on average, it takes between 3 to 6 months to get somebody up to at least 80%. And if you sit down as a business owner and you start calculating those costs out or potential reduction in revenue, now all of a sudden it's like, okay, I really needed some additional funds. And that person sadly died, and now I'm struggling to, I'm not replacing them immediately with exactly, what I had before. Now those additional funds can help you, either help you hire a talent agency to go find somebody, because they're not always cheap, or different things that you can do to use those funds as a business owner to support you while you replace that person.
Okay. And Maureen, I guess legally, what are some of the considerations that an owner, needs to, be apprised of when they're thinking about either I'm retiring and I'm leaving the business, or what do they actually put in place? What should they be preparing for, to put in place to say, if I get sick, if I can't, operate the business anymore, or, just when I'm ready to leave it, right? What kind of documentation is actually required? What should they really have in place?
Right, that's a very good question, Lynette. And when I think about business owners, I usually think about them in several different ways. So I think about your sole proprietors. Those are people who are operating in their own names. They're not incorporated at all. And you have the people who have entities, they're incorporated, they have an LLC or a corporation. And so the consideration, sometimes it's different based on who you're dealing with. So when you're thinking about if something happens to the owner, whether or not it's death or disability, one of the documents that you should have in place is what I always call an authorization and consent to either close or sell the business, right? So the authorization is a legal document that's granting someone the authority to close your business. So, you know, I can say Huckleberry Finn, is giving Tom Sawyer the ability to close my business if I'm ill, if the illness is permanent in nature. And then Tom Sawyer is affirmatively agreeing to take on the responsibility of closing that business. And so both parties to that agreement must sign that document. Then you may have, if the disability is, say, temporary, where the business can continue to operate in the absence of the owner, but you're a sole proprietor, you may want to have a power of attorney. And a power of attorney enables somebody else to make financial decisions on your behalf if you're sick and unable to make those decisions for yourself, right? So if you are an entity, you have an LLC or you have a corporation, your entity must pre-authorize someone other than the sole member or the sole shareholder of that entity to act on behalf of the entity in the event of disability. This can be done through the planning process by executing appropriate entity resolutions. So the entity resolutions will state when and how an agent may act on behalf of the entity. Some entities, some corporation holds formal meetings. So what you would want to do is call a special meeting, and you, in the minutes of the meeting, you will be giving someone the authority to operate the business or close the business down. In lieu of a formal meeting, you can accomplish this by doing a consent of shareholders or consent of the board of directors. For LLC, you may want to add language to your operating agreement, allowing someone else to operate the business in your absence. But for an entity, the entity must pre-authorize someone else besides the owner to operate that business. And then the owner can go ahead after that and sign a power of attorney, which can be limited or it can be very broad in scope, but essentially you're directing what actions can be taken in the event of your disability.
Okay, good. It's a lot of information. And Pat, I know, you know, there has to be agreement, and I'm sure part of it is like a real estate transaction, but you know, what are the key points that go into that type of an agreement? I think you're muted.
Now, which agreement did you want me to
I was
respond
looking
to?
at a buy-sell agreement. So what
Oh.
are the key points that need to be in there? And are there any topics in there that you can think of that may be a little unusual that people should look out for?
I don't know about unusual. I think that a buy-sell agreement is really there to protect everybody in the picture, the individuals and the company. And it does so because very often, I mean, I know Martin alluded to it, and I think he mentioned it kind of, but you know, you have a family. If you're in a partnership, for example, and there's a family there, you want to make sure that family is, when you dissolve a partnership because somebody dies, you know, you want to be able to make sure that that family's taken care of. So you have enough insurance that would cover them and cover, you know, the company. And, you know, that's just one aspect of it that people sometimes don't think about is that, you know, the people they're leaving behind. But as far as the company goes, is, you know, you have to make sure that you're current with the valuation. Otherwise, you know, the closer you are, the less you have to, you know, stress over if something happens. And it doesn't have to be a death. It could be just a dissolution of the partnership or just a partner leaving or anything like that. And I don't think there's anything weird about the, you just, people have all kinds of formulas that determine how much a company is worth, and you could come up with one that makes sense for your industry or your business. But other than that, I don't think there's anything, unusual, in them. I think all the points that we heard in the last few minutes between Martin and Maureen, I think cover most of that.
Yeah, and I can also add a couple of things as well. So your buy-sell agreement is essentially will discuss what events trigger a sale, right? So you're thinking about all the events that can happen and what would trigger a sale of the co-owner's interest in a business. And as Pat says, partners may have families that they're supporting. So even if they're disabled or deceased, the family members can still own the interest in the business, but the income is going to the family members. It also talks about when the shares must be sold. There's also something important in a buy-sell agreement, which is the right of first refusal. So the right of first refusal is typically an owner in a business must offer the other co-owners their share before they sell to an outsider. And so the other co-owner will have an option to purchase the deceased owner or the disabled owner's share at the price that an outsider would offer it to that owner who is selling the shares. And when you think about buy-sell agreement, as Martin says, you want to think about how is it going to be funded? Is it going to be funded by cash that's in the business, or are you going to use insurance proceeds to fund the buy-sell agreement?
Okay.
May I add to that? Or you can also what we do was look to sell a portion of the business to another person because we wanted to buy somebody out. So you can do those sort of things as well. But, as Maureen and everyone keeps saying, it's really important to make sure you put that through. I mean, a first right of refusal, even if you're a sole entity, you could still build into your agreement that if you're no longer able to run the business, your family or somebody within your family has the first right of refusal to buy, and then you hand it over to a broker that will then sell it if they don't come up with the funds or get it dealt with in a certain period of time. So there's, even a sole proprietor can still set it out so that it's organized in the event something happens, and then now it needs to transition. Family, he go first right. Sorry, you didn't get it done. Now it goes in a different direction.
Wow. Okay, so this is a lot. Because I want everybody to just sort of think about, who are these professionals that they really need to engage with if you're thinking about doing this, to make sure that you have the proper documentation, that you really need to protect yourself, protect your business, protect your families. So we've talked about a lot here, not just, leaving the business and going into retirement. We've talked about getting sick, temporary, permanent disability. So when a business is really thinking about, well, let me start planning for a succession, who are those professionals that they need to think about engaging with?
I would say, what we did was lawyer, CPA, and we didn't use a broker or anything but it was for me, I remember it was always the lawyer and the CPA. And then we would build everything out within the contracts. And then once we did that, then we determined how we were going to fund it, and use life insurance and disability insurance as a way to fund it, especially significant enough to fund it within the first 3 to 5 years, unless we really took off, which we ended up doing actually, which was good. But
Right, and you might want to also have appraisers who can do business appraisals to come in and appraise the business. Don't forget about your tax specialists and your bankers. How are you going to fund this? If you can fund it by doing a promissory note, and you get a loan from a bank to fund this agreement. So think about all the people, all the necessary parts of selling your business and all the people that you will come into contact. If you're going to sell, a business broker, if you don't have somebody who you're going to sell, is going to purchase or is interested in your business, you may want to get the services of a business broker who may have a portfolio of buyers to help you with the sale of that business.
Right. Right. And if you let me put up the screen for a second, I'm just going to add to that. I was trying to share my screen here. Share that. Sorry, let me just do that again. You can't see the screen, right?
No, we can't.
Well,
Yeah, I know it was a great.
just-
because you had
all right. For some
to it.
reason, I can't seem to.
Just
Yeah,
talk to it, Pat. Just talk to it.
Oh, okay. Okay, actually, I got it here. This is, I made a little list of all of the specialists and people that you might need while you're going through a business sale, which is, and it touches on everything that everybody's been talking about. If you really have a thriving business or something is really going to be worth money, you really need to have a lot of the people that you see on the screen as part of your team, and you need somebody to coordinate it. I'm a CFO, so I put myself down here as the team manager because it's sometimes what we do. We organize bringing in the people, and very often it's the people that they're used to dealing with. So obviously, a business owner has to be an integral part of this. Very often it's they have attorneys that they are comfortable with already, or CPAs, tax specialists. They may need auditors to prove certain things, or what they say they are. The bankers, they're key employees. There's a lot of people in this equation. You can see IT specialists, wealth manager, very important, because let's say they sell and they're going to get all this money. They have to be able to have a plan for what are they going to do with the money, to where can they put it to not only save money, but in taxes and also to earn money. So that's a very important aspect of this, and there's a lot of financial advisors that can help with that. And of course, I think Maureen just mentioned an appraiser, and there are other advisors. It could be anyone, directors of the company, some professional coaches that people know. The point is, you should have a team ready and willing and able to work to get you not only the best value, but the easiest transition from where you are to where you want to be. Okay, and so this is kind of the picture.
Got it. Yeah, I really like that chart because that kind of covers everybody that you need to be in touch with. So let me ask this question. I have a few businesses that I've worked with over the years, and they just decided, I'm done, I'm going into retirement, and those businesses were just there. How late, after a business is closed, is it ever too late to go back and try to find a buyer for that business?
I think it does get to a point where it's too late, because things like reputation and location and things like, if you're going to close a business and now it's not there anymore, it's hard to make a case for the things that are the things that continue might be that, like I said, the trademarks or the reputation. You can't really sell your reputation unless you're part of something new, and you can sell a trademark. And maybe that's all, maybe have some value, but there's not going to be much, or assets, but once you close a business, you're pretty much writing it off. And it happens far too frequently than it probably should.
Yeah, I've actually tried to get people to really consider, selling your business. Don't just walk away. There's a lot here, and that hasn't quite worked. So I just didn't know if there's a point where it's too late for you to try to sell it. So I'm going to open it up now with 20 minutes to go to our audience to see what questions you guys may have that we haven't covered. and what personal questions for your own business that you may have some questions about. And either you can turn on your camera and your microphone, or you can put them in the chat. Okay, now don't be shy.
Just good afternoon. This is Stephen Kennedy. I think it's noon. No, it's still morning. I just first of all, I want to say thank you for the presenters, and you all provided much valuable information. I'm a small business owner here in New Orleans, and I've always, wanted to understand how I can properly value my business, and also how I can properly value other business that I might think of acquiring in the future. So I want to thank you all for taking the time out to share your knowledge and your information with us. I guess mine was more so in regards to the, I guess 2 questions. The first one is in regards to the insurance. If you all can kind of elaborate a little bit more on when do you all think small businesses should go about instituting the insurance requirements, getting insurance on themselves and getting insurance on other employees that they bring into the business is the first question that I have for you all.
Well, I'm going to go on that one, as you mentioned the word insurance. Stephen, thank you. Good question. As soon as you can. The insurance, especially life insurance and disability insurance, only gets more expensive the older you get. So the sooner you do it, the better. But if you can, you buy more than you need up front. But if you can't, then you buy as much as you can afford. I mean, all of us as small business owners can only do as much as we can afford to do. So, buy up to where you can budget to do so. And now you've got that, now you have that safety net in place, and you can look at other ways that you can secure yourself or other people in that business with things like health insurance. I also did gym membership for all our employees at our company because I felt it was important to keep them fit. So, but there's things you can do to help, make sure those things are into place. So I hope I answered your question.
You did. Thank you for that. And my second question is in regards to like acquisition purposes. And what do you all, I guess, kind of think the best method in regards to acquiring another business? Like say, for instance, if you're trying to acquire another business that might help you become vertically integrated, but you really don't have all the resources. If that company probably been in existence a little bit longer, they might have more assets and things of that nature. What do you all kind of feel like is the best strategy to either acquire the business out or do some type of strategic partnership with the business and then acquire it later on down the line?
I think I probably should take that. It's obviously you can do any number of things, but I think a basic kind of strategy when you're talking about acquiring a business is, first of all, you want to be prepared to do the due diligence that you have to do in purchasing that business. You have to make sure that what's being represented to you is actually what's there, especially if you're going to use it in a strategic manner. So, there I would recommend strongly that you get audited statements and you make sure you have a good portion of that team I put up on the board to help you, at least make sure, and you can do that after you kind of negotiate some version of a deal, but you need to find out that what you're buying is actually what you think you're buying. That's critical. Secondly, as far as how to finance that, it's interesting because when you buy something, part of what you can borrow against is what you're buying. So very often you'll be able to put together a package where you're like buying a house. You're buying a house and you get a mortgage. So you could buy a business and basically get a loan against that business and that business's earnings. So that's effectively how most people buy things. But in addition to that, you could also look for investors, and you could put together a presentation and a private placement and maybe get 1 or 2 investors that are either in your business or have an interest in what you're doing. And that's a little, there's all kinds of avenues to raise money, whether it's equity or it's capital or it's preferred equity that allows them to convert. or any number of things, but that's a kind of path that you have to look for, but you must be careful on the path. I'm just going to reiterate that because I think it's extremely important. And did I answer that question? Do you have more on that?
You did. I think that was helpful. That was kind of more of my thinking. It's just making sure that you have the right team, but it's still, I understand that for small businesses, the capital piece is, always a critical one, and just figuring out how do you find those strategic financial partners and just strategic partners in general, to be able to make these acquisitions, so you don't have to go and start another company from scratch, and it take you forever to scale up.
Right. Well, I mean, it's hard to know when people are selling things, but you could always just have a kind of a general conversation with, if you think of a company that you're interested in, you could even go to your attorney and let them, kind of feel it out and see if there's any interest in them selling, for example, if you think there's something that's a good fit, or you could just basically talk to them about doing some kind of joint venturing, because if they're in the business and you're in the business and you could both benefit from joining forces, you might be able to negotiate a deal like that, where you're basically setting up it may not be a real entity, or it could be, but you set up something where you're working together, share your resources, and you're able to open a whole new market or something like that. I mean, I don't know the specifics of your business, but in general, there's a lot of things you can do. You just have to have an open mind and just be a little bold on it and go ahead and make the call,
Right. And
I
wanted to add that, from a legal perspective, when you're doing these kinds of investigation, you may also want, when you're approaching people and when you're investigating, maybe have a confidentiality agreement. So, confidences that are shared between each other isn't disclosed to a new party, or the business that you're seeking to be partner with doesn't take your proprietary information and use that information in their own business. And I always say due diligence is one of the most important things you can do when you're considering partnering or acquiring a new business. One of the things I always do is ask the new business or the partner whether or not they're involved in any litigation. You don't want to purchase a lawsuit, essentially, or you have to think about what the litigation is and what your appetite for litigating is.
All right, I'd like to add on to this a little bit too. One is when you're buying a company, etc., you should also look at all the people involved and what asset they may be to that business, especially if lost. And you can require, as part of the sale of that company, that the life insurance is purchased on those individuals on behalf of you, the buyer, or if you do it on your own, or you can do it as part of the sale process. Because if you've got a particular salesperson that's responsible for 40% of all sales, then if you buy it and that person sprays out, etc., or dies, or something happens, then you've now lost a massive income on what you're purchasing. I would also add on to what Maureen's saying, having a non-disclosure agreement or an NDA, having it for even standard business practices is a good thing to have. You can be contracting even with vendors and use an NDA. And then on what Pat was saying, going into a joint venture, be very careful to up front, check with all your insurance. Insurance companies do not like joint ventures, and a lot of times they won't cover them. So because it's who's got the controlling. They don't like it with equal controlling. There needs to be an entity. So, for example, let's say if two restaurants buy each other, or whatever, they want to do something jointly together, or whatever the business is, they would really need to set up a partnership or an LLC, and there'd be members of that LLC or that partnership, etc., and set it all up as a brand new entity. Just trying to casually do a joint venture, your insurance, there's exclusions in your policies right now. They don't like it at all.
Yeah, I think also, I mean, if you're serious about finding somebody to work with, as opposed to buy them out, you need financial help I mean, and I would think, unless you're really so on top of everything everybody's doing, but you really need to see if that before you approach them for this, you need to see if your thoughts about them being a good strategic partner are, if they're correct, and very often you can get a lot more information with a professional helping you to get that information and to lay it out, to show you what financially is going to happen. I assume you're going to do all that anyway, but you need either your accountant or a financial person, somebody to assist you to lay out the picture from a financial point of view. And in addition to the insurance and probably many other aspects of it. So just bear that in mind. Just don't be careful. Just don't rush into anything.
Wow. That's really interesting that insurance companies don't like joint ventures. That's one of the growth strategies that we try to get our companies to take up as a strategy to join.
Let me rephrase. Let me rephrase. If you get two entities where one is the vendor of the other and they're supporting each other by supplying to each other as a part, together, that's a normal business relationship. A joint venture to me is in this case would be two entities doing exactly the same thing together, right? And so now, whether it's a construction site, whether it's a restaurant, they open up a new restaurant, but that restaurant's now jointly owned by two completely separate entities. So now the issue is, let's take something like workers' compensation. Whose employees are they in that new restaurant? So you've now got to determine, do you set up a new entity or do you give controlling interest to entity A? Yeah. And entity B is no more than an investor. They're no longer a controlling portion of that. So that's where, and there's other, under liability insurance companies don't like it. So it just gets, again, if you've got two entities doing completely two different things, but they're supplying to each other and working back and forth because they give each other good deals, they like each other, and they're supporting the local community. That's different than doing the exact same thing together. Does that clear it up?
Yeah, it does, and I can see how it would get complex. Yeah. Okay, so any other questions, presenters? Okay, y'all are going to think of all these great questions after we get off, and they're not going to be here. Well, we have just a few minutes left. So, thank you guys first and foremost for being here. And we hope that this information was valuable to you all and looking at succession planning for your businesses. I know I've learned quite a bit today. And, just so you'll know that, we'll have maybe, I think 1 or 2 sessions that we're going to pick back up in January. So look out for those. And then throughout the year in 2023, we're going to be doing some small business specialty trainings, kind of lunch and learn type trainings. We'll be bringing in some, experts to really address some of the needs that we're hearing from you guys about, helping you and guiding you along your journeys in your businesses. And then additionally, we have programs that we run here at NOLA VA. Invest NOLA is a program that we run it's an accelerator for high growth potential businesses of color. We also have our Resilient Corridors initiative where we work in 7 disinvested, under-resourced neighborhoods, working with those merchants and business associations and economic development districts to be able to help and build capacity in those small businesses in those neighborhoods. We also have our Advancing Cities program, which works with green businesses. So that's another area, where we want to, make sure that we're addressing the needs of those newer types of businesses and bringing in sustainability. But we want to thank our partners, Mastercard, for helping us to bring this presentation to you. And again, we hope that it was eye-opening, and hopefully you took a lot of notes and you're going to leave here with plans to plan for your succession. But I want to thank our presenters today, Maureen and Pat and Martin, for giving us such valuable information. And before we leave, as we've done with the last several of these workshops, we give away a $100 Mastercard gift card to one lucky attendee. So I will let Valerie do the honors for that.
Yeah, thank you, Lynette. I just wanted to say our winner for the $100 Mastercard gift card is Patricia Jones with Galcon Electric. So Patricia, if you would please reach out to me. My email is vhuntley@nolaba.org. I'll put that in the chat and you can reach out to me and we will make arrangements for you to pick up your gift card. Thank y'all.
Yeah, and actually
If you-
Patricia will be here on Friday. So
Okay.
hopefully we'll be able to give it to her at that time.
And Lynette,
Okay,
if you're going to, I noticed that you said that you would be making the recording available to everybody. But if you can, I think maybe for my case anyway, I'll speak to myself. I don't mind if you want to give out my information. So if people have questions, I'd be happy to talk to them, offline or whenever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll forward that to everybody today to make sure that, they can contact you. And thank you
Right,
for
yeah.
that. Yeah, that's big.
Okay,
All right.
thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank you,
everybody.
everybody.
Same
Yeah.
here, Lynette.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. Okay, well, good. There's some new resources that you guys have just picked up. So I'll make sure to get that information out to everybody and, you can reach out to our experts here to get some more information. But thanks everybody for attending today. We'll get back to our Thursday. Lord, I don't even know what day it is. To our
Wednesday.
Thursday. Oh, it's Wednesday. It's Wednesday. Okay, let's get back to our Wednesday. Everybody enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you,
Take
guys.
care.